Sometimes the past doesn't knock. It waits silently behind a locked door. The key trembled in Olivia Harper's hand as she turned it in the rusted lock, the sound echoing down the empty porch. She was 5 months pregnant and alone, left behind by a man who couldn't carry the weight of responsibility. The door creaked open, releasing a breath of stale air that smelled like lavender and loss. Dust motes danced in the beams of fading afternoon light, illuminating furniture shrouded in white sheets and corners where cobwebs had claimed dominion. 3 years had passed since her mother's funeral, but it felt like a lifetime. Olivia stepped inside, her free hand resting instinctively on her belly, as if protecting the life within from the ghosts waiting in the shadows. The house stood frozen in time, photographs on the mantel, notes still pinned to the kitchen corkboard, and the faint scent of her mother's perfume that refused to fade. Each step deeper pulled her further into the ache of memory, laughter around the dinner table, late-night talks on the couch, her mother humming softly as she balanced checkbooks by candlelight. "I should have come back sooner," she whispered to the quiet. But the house said nothing. It only watched her, patient and remembering. She moved through each room as if exploring a museum of her own childhood. In the kitchen, a calendar hung eternally on the month her mother was hospitalized. Dishes still sat in the drying rack, a ghostly display of daily life abruptly ended. The refrigerator stood empty, unplugged, a monument to time's cruelty. Her phone buzzed. Mark's name lit the screen. The man who had promised forever and delivered nothing. She silenced it. Upstairs, she found her old bedroom door slightly ajar, the only space untouched by decay. Posters still lined the walls. Books were neatly stacked on shelves, and her high school trophies gleamed as though waiting for her return. Her mother had preserved it perfectly. On the nightstand sat a framed photo. Olivia at graduation, her mother's arm around her shoulders, both faces bright with possibility. She sank onto the bed, clutching the stuffed bear that had comforted her through childhood storms. "I don't know how to do this without you," she said into the emptiness, her tears sinking into the fabric of her past. Downstairs, the wind shifted through the cracked windows, and for just a moment the scent of lavender deepened, as if her mother were listening. That night, the house whispered. The wind rattled the loose panes, floorboards sighed beneath unseen weight, and shadows moved like old memories. Hunger eventually pulled Olivia from her restless thoughts. She lit a candle and wandered into the kitchen, where her eyes caught a familiar object, her mother's worn leather recipe book, Caroline's Kitchen. The cover was cracked, its pages marked with handwritten notes, double the vanilla. Always served warm, perfect for winter blues. She flipped through until she found her favorite childhood recipe, peanut butter cookies. With trembling hands, she gathered what ingredients remained in the cupboards, whisking together sugar, flour and eggs by flickering candlelight. The scent of baking filled the house, curling through rooms like a memory resurrected. As the first batch cooled, she found a note written in her mother's looping script. "Made these the day we brought Olivia home from the hospital. We'll make them again when she brings her own children someday." Olivia's breath hitched. She pressed her hand to her belly, whispering through tears. "You didn't know I'd be doing it without you," but in that fragile silence, the warmth from the oven felt almost like an embrace, proof that her mother's love had outlived her. Morning light revealed the truth that night had hidden. The house was failing, peeling wallpaper, water stains, sagging ceilings. But what shattered Olivia most weren't the cracks in the walls. It was what she found in the desk drawer. Stacks of bills, labeled and organized, told the story of a woman quietly drowning. Hospital invoices, past due notices, foreclosure warnings, all hidden behind smiles and phone calls that had never hinted at struggle. Beneath the weight of those papers, Olivia found a small folder titled Caroline Harper Budget. Every expense was recorded down to the penny, and in the margins her mother had written small reminders: stretch every dollar. Stay grateful. Love Olivia more than fear tomorrow. Her throat tightened when she noticed two untouched lines in the ledger: Olivia's birthday and Olivia's Christmas. Even when cutting food and medication, her mother had refused to erase those. "You were still taking care of me," Olivia whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. A sudden flutter beneath her ribs startled her, the baby's first strong kick. She pressed her hand to her belly, smiling through the grief. "We'll make it," she promised. Somewhere above her the house creaked again, not menacing but reassuring, as if echoing her vow. The discoveries continued. Behind a loose baseboard in her mother's bedroom, Olivia found a small brass key engraved C.H. Caroline Harper. It led her to a hidden drawer inside an antique writing desk, and inside lay a bundle of yellowed letters tied with a faded blue ribbon. Each envelope was addressed to the same man, William Harper, her father, the man who had vanished when she was 3. Her hands trembled as she opened the first. "Dear William, it's been 3 months since you left. Olivia asks for you every night before bed. I've run out of ways to explain why her daddy doesn't come home." The next letter spoke of first dance classes and missing teeth. Another told of her first spelling bee, her first heartbreak. Her mother had chronicled every milestone for a father who would never read them. Then came a letter dated years later. "I heard from your sister today. She says you're gone." How do I tell Olivia? Her father had died in a cabin in Colorado, alone. Yet her mother had continued writing even after his death, sharing joys and sorrows with a ghost. Olivia's tears blurred the ink. All her life, she had believed she was the child of abandonment. But now she realized she was also the child of love, a love that refused to stop speaking, even when no one was listening. That evening, a gentle knock echoed through the house. On the porch stood Eleanor Winters, the elderly neighbor who had lived next door for decades, holding a casserole dish and an old gold pocket watch. "Your mother wanted this to go to your child," she said, placing it gently in Olivia's hand. Inside was an inscription: "Time passes, love endures." Olivia blinked back tears as Eleanor spoke softly about Caroline, how even in her final weeks, she'd been climbing to the attic, preparing the way. When Olivia finally gathered the courage to follow, she found boxes stacked neatly beneath the eaves, each labeled by year. One box held her baby bracelet, another her first drawings. Then tucked behind a beam, she found a sealed container filled with handmade baby clothes. Tiny mittens, a yellow cardigan, a note that read, "Yes, I know about the baby. I may be gone, but I intend to be the most present absent grandmother in history." Olivia's sobs filled the quiet attic. Even dying hadn't stopped her mother from mothering. In that moment, she no longer felt abandoned. She felt chosen, part of a love story that refused to end, even in death. Storms have a way of testing what's been built, and that night, thunder rolled over the house like judgment. As rain lashed the windows, a knock came again, this time Mark, soaked, impatient and uninvited. He wanted to discuss arrangements. Olivia, who had spent her day uncovering her mother's final note, "A home gives both roots and wings," stood her ground. "You can't raise a child here," Mark argued, scanning the old furniture, the patched roof. "This isn't stability." She handed him her mother's letter. "She worked 2 jobs through cancer to make sure I'd inherit this place free and clear. This isn't just a house, it's a promise." When he scoffed, the door opened again. Eleanor had returned, followed by her son-in-law and half the neighborhood, tools in hand, buckets ready. They climbed the roof, patched leaks, and replaced shingles as the storm howled. Mark stood silent, a man watching community replace convenience. When the work was done and the fire crackled again, he said quietly, "This isn't what I wanted for you." Olivia smiled faintly, brushing her hand over her belly. "No," she said, "but it's exactly what I need." Outside, the storm passed. Inside, for the first time in years, the house felt alive. Winter came, and with it new life. The house was transformed, walls repaired, garden restored, laughter returning to its halls. Olivia painted the nursery in sage green, hung her mother's quilt on the wall, and kept one final unopened box on the dresser. The label read, "Open on baby's birthday." When the day finally arrived, snow fell softly outside, blanketing the world in silence. Labor came long and hard, but Eleanor was there, just as Caroline had arranged, holding her hand through every breath. Hours later, a baby's cry broke the air. "A girl," the midwife whispered. Olivia wept as she held her daughter close, whispering, "Welcome home, Caroline." That night she opened the box. Inside lay a hand-carved mobile of stars, a music box, and a letter. "If you're reading this, love has renewed itself. You come from a line of women who bend but never break. I'm with you still, in every lullaby, in every breath of this house." Olivia wound the music box. A familiar tune filled the room, the same lullaby her mother once sang to her. She rocked her newborn by the window, the snow glowing silver beyond the glass. 3 generations, one in arms, one in spirit, one in memory, together in a single heartbeat. "We're home," Olivia whispered to the baby, and the house, the old loyal house, seemed to sigh in contentment. And as you sit here wherever you are, maybe it's late at night, or maybe you're watching this on your phone during a quiet moment, take a breath. Think of the people you've loved, the ones who built the walls around your heart. Tell me down in the comments, where are you watching this story from, and what time is it right now? Because stories like this one, of love that refuses to fade, remind us that time and place don't matter. What matters is that somewhere, someone is listening, and love is finding its way home again.